She raised 3 children who became exactly what she wanted them to be, and she hadn't spoken to any of them in months. Margaret turned 68 in October. She didn't tell anyone, not because no one would have cared, but because she wasn't sure anymore who to tell. There was a time when her phone rang constantly, her daughter calling from Boston, her eldest son checking in from Seattle, the youngest, David, who always remembered her birthday even when he forgot everything else. Those calls had thinned out slowly, the way daylight thins in November. You don't notice it until suddenly it's dark at 5 o'clock, and you don't remember when that started. She had grown up in a small Ohio city, the daughter of immigrants who worked double shifts and still found a way to put dinner on the table by 7. Education was the whole point. Education was survival. She carried that belief into her own house the way you carry a piece of furniture. You drag it in without thinking, and then one day it's just there, and you've arranged everything else around it. Her children were bright, all 3 of them, and Margaret made sure they knew what that meant. Dinner table conversations became grade reviews. Weekend afternoons became tutoring sessions. When Sarah brought home a B+ in chemistry sophomore year, Margaret had the number of a tutor by morning. She told herself it was love. She believed that completely. But that wasn't the part that stayed with her. What stayed with her was a Tuesday evening in March, probably 20 years back now, when David was maybe 9. He had built something out of cardboard and tape, some kind of spaceship, she thought, or maybe a castle. He had spent the whole afternoon on it. He carried it downstairs to show her, and she had looked at it for a moment and said, "That's very nice. Did you finish your math worksheet?" She couldn't remember his face in that moment. She had tried to many times since. She couldn't retrieve it. There was something else she hadn't let herself think about until recently, something that sat quietly in the back of every conversation she'd replayed. Her children had grown up with a mother who was always paying attention, and somehow none of them had ever felt truly seen. She knew that now. She just hadn't known how to name it until the house went quiet. The quiet was different than it used to be. Then, silence meant everyone was doing homework. Now it meant no one was coming. She sat at the kitchen table most mornings and listened to the refrigerator hum and let herself think about things she had kept at arm's length for a long time. The smell of Sunday dinners from when the kids were still in grade school, something sweet in the oven, the whole house smelling like a place that had people in it. She thought about what she had been trying to do all those years. She had wanted them safe. She had wanted them past the kind of worry that had followed her own parents to their graves. The worry of not enough, of falling behind, of being left behind by a country that did not particularly care whether you made it. That was real. She had not invented the danger. If you've ever loved someone mostly in silence and told yourself that was protection, you already know how this part feels. But she had made a mistake that took her decades to recognize. She had confused pressure with love. Not entirely. Love was in there too, she was sure of it, but pressure had been the language she spoke most fluently, and her children had grown up learning to hear it, even when she thought she was saying something else. Sarah was a physician now, 41 years old, busy in ways Margaret understood intellectually and couldn't reach emotionally. They spoke every few weeks, polite conversations, the kind where both people are performing a version of fine. Margaret had stopped asking about Sarah's personal life 2 years ago because Sarah always answered in a tone that wasn't quite closed but wasn't quite open either. She told herself it was just her daughter's personality. She told herself that for a long time. Her eldest, James, had moved to Portland. He called on holidays. She could hear something careful in his voice, the way a person sounds when they've thought about what they're going to say before picking up the phone. She used to think that meant he was being respectful. She wasn't sure about that anymore. The thing she had never said, not once, not to any of them, was that she had been proud of them before the grades, before the acceptances, before the careers, that she had been proud of them when they were 6 years old and learning to tie their shoes, that the achievements had never been the whole point, that she hadn't known back then how to separate what she feared from what she felt. She had never said that. She had said, "Study harder," and "What happened to the other 3 points?" and "Do you know what this opportunity means?" She had said those things so many times that they became the sound of her voice in her children's memories. A handwritten card from David arrived in late November, brief but warm in a way the phone calls rarely were. She read it 3 times at the kitchen table. Then she put it in the wooden drawer by the stove, the one that sticks in summer, and she left it there. She had been a good mother in the ways she understood how to be one. She had not been absent. She had shown up to every recital, every graduation, every moment that's supposed to matter. She had also been afraid the entire time, and she had never let that show, and she had never explained it, and her children had felt the fear without ever understanding what it was. What she had taken from them without meaning to was not their childhood. It was her own softness, the version of her that was simply their mother, not their manager. She picked up the phone one evening in December and called David. He answered on the second ring. She hadn't prepared what she was going to say. She told him she had been thinking about that cardboard spaceship. She said she was sorry she hadn't sat down on the floor with him that afternoon. There was a long pause on the line. Then he said, "Mom, I don't even remember that." And she said, "I know, I do." He came home for Christmas that year. It was the first time in 4. Whether the distance would close with all of them, she couldn't say. Some things get said too many times in a certain tone of voice, and they don't unhear easily. She was not expecting restoration. She was hoping, quietly, for conversation, for dinners that didn't feel like apologies, for enough time to let them know what had always been underneath the pushing, that all of it, every tutor, every expectation, every report card reviewed like a legal document, had come from a place that was, at its root, just fear dressed up as love. She had never found the words for that while it was happening. She was finding them now, at 68, in a quiet house with a drawer full of things she should have said sooner. She sat on the porch in a cold January evening, the kind of night that makes the neighborhood look exactly like it did 30 years ago. She had raised 3 children who became exactly what she wanted them to be, and she was only now beginning to understand what she had wanted in the first place. The porch light stayed on all night.